Hello and welcome to Red Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We've officially made it through 3 weeks of the NFL season. Week 3 was a pretty exciting week, and there was a couple games that proved the old adage of any given Sunday anything can happen. As the Cleveland Browns had an upset. We had multiple games with blocked field goals. A couple of those field goals returned for touchdowns. Just a bunch of good games throughout this throughout week 3. With some upsets happening, I did go 9-7 with my picks, giving me an overall record of 32-16 on the week. So, hoping for a bit of a bounce back week going to week 4. With that being said, week 4 of the NFL season kicks off this Thursday with an NFC West battle as the Seattle Seahawks, who are 2-1, coming off of a pretty dominant victory over the New Orleans Saints, take on the Arizona Cardinals, who are also 2-1, coming off of a very close loss to the San Francisco 49ers. This is a game that is a divisional game, so anything can happen. I do expect this to be a pretty good game. The Cardinals had a lot of miscues on offense, as there was a handful of times that Marvin Harrison Jr. could have had some big catches, and he could not come down with the ball. Also, unfortunately for Arizona, they lost their starting running back James Conner for the season with, I believe, an ankle injury, so he's out for the season. So it's time to see what Trey Benson can do, stepping in his place. For Seattle, they had a very dominant win. Their defense continues to look very good. Kenneth Walker had a pretty good game. Jackson Smith-Njigba continues to look like a very good wide receiver for them. My pick for this game, I am going to go with the Seahawks. Now, I do think this could be a close game because it is a divisional game. Anything could happen. But I just think the Seahawks defense is going to be able to give Kyler Murray fits. I think they're going to be able to do a good job of shutting down Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't know how Trey Benson is going to look. So I'm going to give the edge to the defense there. And then offensively, I think the Seahawks offense should do pretty well against this defense. So I'm going to go with Seattle to get the victory here. Next up, on Sunday morning, you have a game taking place in Dublin, Ireland, as the Minnesota Vikings, who are 2-1, coming off of a very dominant victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, even with Carson Wentz as their quarterback. Game in which their defense looked very dominant against Jake Browning, but still this Bengals offense. And you have them taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are also 2-1, coming off of a pretty close victory over the New England Patriots, in which they forced 5 turnovers, which really helped them win that game. So Pittsburgh, they had some offensive struggles against New England. When Aaron Rodgers was pressured, he made some pretty bad throws. He did throw an interception. Their defense gave up a lot of chunk plays to the Patriots. Patriots had one drive where they went 17 plays, and the only reason they didn't score is because Drake May threw a pretty bad ball for an interception. And for the Minnesota Vikings, their defense looked very dominant, having 2 defensive touchdowns, really shutting down the Bengals offense. Offensively, Carson Wentz did just enough for them. They were able to get a pretty dominant victory, mainly on their defense, but Carson Wentz did not play bad. This is a Vikings defense that is always pretty good. Last time, so they played Aaron Rodgers when he was on the Jets last year. They're also very familiar with him, having played him twice a year when he was on the Packers for so many years. And they gave him fits last year when they played him. Like, they were able to pressure him. They were able to get after him. And I think that happens again. And because of this defense's ability to cause pressure, and I think that pressure will cause Aaron Rodgers to make some mistakes. I do think the Minnesota Vikings get the victory here, as well, just with their defense, and as well as I think Jordan Mason, who had a good game against Cincinnati, will continue that into this game against Pittsburgh. So I do think that the Minnesota Vikings get out here with victory. Now moving on to your early Sunday afternoon games, you have the Washington Commanders, who are 2-1, coming off of a victory over the Vegas Raiders, in which Marcus Mariota started for them because Jaden Daniels was out with a sprained knee, and Marcus Mariota actually played very well. Their running game did very good with their kind of three running back tandem of obviously Bill Krosky, Jeremy Nichols, and Chris Rodriguez. All of them had pretty good roles in that game, and Marcus Mariota, his ability to, as a runner, helped them tremendously in that game. And they had some return touchdowns. So they were just, all around had a very good game against the Raiders. Yeah, the Atlanta Falcons coming off of a blowout loss to the Carolina Panthers, where they lost 30-0. Their offense couldn't really get anything going. Michael Penix wound up being benched late in that game for Kirk Cousins. Their defense didn't look that good against Bryce Young. And so, a lot of question marks around Atlanta right now. So I am going to go with the Washington Commanders to get the victory. I think that defensively, they're still pretty good. They should be able to, rattle Michael Penix. And offensively, it looks like they might be without Terry McLaurin, but Deebo Samuel is still very good. They could possibly get Jaden Daniels back for this game. And, their running game still looks very good. Luke McCaffrey had a good touchdown catch late in that game. I think offensively, still going to do fine. Defensively, they should be able to get after Michael Penix and slow down this Falcons offense. So I do think the Washington Commanders get the victory here. Next up, you have the New Orleans Saints, who are 0-3, coming off of a blowout loss to the Seattle Seahawks, taking on the Buffalo Bills, who are 3-0, coming off of a 10-point victory over the Dolphins when they played last week on Thursday night. And not too much analysis going to go into this game. I think the Buffalo Bills can get the victory here. They're a far superior team. I think, defensively, they should be able to get after Spencer Rattler. Offensively, still got Josh Allen, still got James Cook. Should have no real issues moving the ball down the field. So I do think the Buffalo Bills get the victory here. And, maybe the Saints can try to make it competitive. But if last week was anything to go by, with their first game away from home not being close at all, this game also being away from home for the Saints. It didn't look good last week on the road. I don't think they're going to look much better this week on the road. I think the Buffalo Bills get the win. Next up, you have the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-2, coming off of a close victory, last-second field goal victory over the Green Bay Packers, taking on the Detroit Lions, who are 2-1, who got a shootout victory over the Baltimore Ravens this past Monday night in a game in which, offensively, their run game was running on all cylinders. Jahmyr Gibbs had a couple touchdowns. David Montgomery played very well. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a pretty good game. And defensively, they were able to sack Lamar Jackson 7 times. They were able to force a fumble on Derrick Henry that wound up being the big difference maker late in that game. So, their offense has looked so much better than it did week 1 against Green Bay Packers. Their defense has looked very good the past couple of weeks for the Lions. And for Cleveland, their defense looks tremendous. Their defense looked great week 1 against Cincinnati. The bulk of the game against the Ravens in week 2, it looked very good. They held Derrick Henry to 23 rushing yards when they played the Ravens. And they, made the Packers look, not great on offense when the Packers had looked very good the first 2 weeks of the season. The problem with the Browns comes with their offense. They're not really able to get much going on offense. They were down 10-0 at one point against Green Bay and wound up being able to come back. Quinshon Judkins, their rookie running back, looked very good in that game. He could be a key element for them in this game. But ultimately, I do think that the Detroit Lions will get the victory. I think this could be much closer than people think, as the Cleveland defense has been very good. But I think this Lions offense is just too overpowered. I think this Lions defense should be able to get after Joe Flacco, get after this Cleveland Browns offense. So I do think the Detroit Lions get the victory here. Next up, you have the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-2, taking on the New England Patriots, who are also 1-2. Carolina coming off of their first victory of the year, and a 30-0, drumming of the Atlanta Falcons. The New England Patriots coming off of their very close loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, in which they turned the ball over 5 times, and that was the massive difference maker in that game. It's kind of hard to win a football game when you give the other team the ball 5 times, and 2 of those times being near the goal line, taking points off the board for you. Now, Carolina, as good as they looked against Atlanta, it did not look very good the first 2 weeks of the season. Don't know what it is. Bryce Young has actually played very well against Atlanta. He's only lost to them once in his career. New England, as bad as they were with the turnovers, they looked like a better team against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if they had not turned the ball over as much, they should have won that game easily by 1 or 2 touchdowns at least. Because the Patriots look like the more talented team. The Patriots defense was still able to get after Aaron Rodgers, getting an interception. Their defense, especially their front, has been very good this season. Their offense has started to come along. As long as they can hang on to the football, I do think the New England Patriots get the victory here. I think the Patriots get the victory over the Carolina Panthers. Next up, you have the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 3-0. Coming off a very close victory over the Denver Broncos, taking on the New York Giants, who are 0-3, coming off of a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. For the Giants, they are finally making a quarterback change. Rookie Jackson Dart is going to get the start in this game. He could be an upgrade over Russell Wilson. I don't know how much that will really help them this week against this Chargers defense that has been very good. I think the Giants' defensive line should hopefully be able to get some pressure on Justin Herbert, but I don't think that their defensive line, their pass rush is going to be enough for them. I think that the Chargers still find a way to win this game. That's with Marion Hampton, who started to look very good against Denver after Najee Harris unfortunately went out with an apparent Achilles injury. Marion Hampton could get the ball more here, become a bigger factor in this offense. Justin Herbert, I think, is still going to play very good with his 3 pretty big weapons at receiver. That's getting the ball with Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, or Quentin Johnson, who has been very good the first 3 weeks of the season. So I do think that the Chargers get the victory here. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to do enough here. I think they could keep it close because of their defense, and maybe Jackson Dart has a good game, but ultimately I think the Chargers get away with the victory here. Next up, you have a battle of 2 undefeated teams, as the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 3-0, coming off of a victory over the LA Rams, in which they were down by 19 points at one point, and a block kick and kick return by Jordan Davis to really seal the victory for them last week, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are also 3-0, coming off a very close victory over the Jets, in which late in that game they had a field goal blocked and returned for a touchdown by the Jets. But ultimately, on the final drive, Baker Mayfield was able to lead them into field goal range for the game-winning field goal. I think this is going to be a very good game. These are 2 very good teams. Unfortunately for the Buccaneers, they are going to be without star receiver Mike Evans, as he is dealing with a hamstring injury. It's possible they can get Chris Godwin back this week. That's still unclear. For the Eagles, they're looking to have offensively more of a bounce back week. They were not able to do much in the running game last week. However, they showed that when they need to, they can throw the ball, which is something they didn't really need to do the first 2 weeks of the season. I think this is going to be a very good game. I think this is going to be a very close game. Ultimately, I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get the victory here. Don't know what it is. Baker Mayfield always plays very good against Philadelphia. He beat them in the playoffs a couple years ago. He beat them when they played in the regular season last year. So I'm going to pick the Baker Mayfield mojo for when he plays Philadelphia, and I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get the victory over the Eagles. Next up, you have an AFC South battle between two winless teams. Well, somebody has to win, unless they tie. As the Tennessee Titans, who are 0-3, coming off a loss to the Indianapolis Colts, take on the Houston Texans, who are also 0-3, coming off of a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. For the Titans, this is another week of Cam Ward having to play a good defense. It's just been, freaking. This has been a week after week after. This has been 4 weeks in a row now of Cam Ward taking on teams with very good defenses. We'll see how he does. He has played pretty well. For the Texans, as good as their defense has been, their offense has not been all that good. Their offensive line is in shambles. They're giving up lots of pressures. They're not being able to run the ball very well. Against the Jaguars, Nico Collins did have a good game, but it was ultimately not enough. Ultimately, I do think that the Texans will get the victory here. I think it is due in main part to their defense being able to generate pressure and get after Cam Ward and hopefully make him force him to make some rookie mistakes. I do think the Texans will get the victory here. Next up, you have the Indianapolis Colts, who are 3-0, coming off of their victory over the Tennessee Titans, taking on the LA Rams, who are 2-1, coming off of their loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. For the Colts, is this finally the week that Daniel Jones turns back into Daniel Jones of old, as he's playing a team with a very good defense, or do they continue to be a juggernaut on offense with Daniel Jones not turning the ball over, playing good football, making good decisions, Jonathan Taylor running very well. Their defense has played very well to start this season for the Colts. And for the Rams, so they obviously have very good defense, coming off of a devastating loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. See how they respond. They have a very good offense with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Kyron Williams still running very well. Blake Corum still getting involved a good amount. Obviously Matthew Stafford, a very good veteran quarterback. I think this could be a very good game. But ultimately, I do think that the Rams and that defense is going to get the better of the Indianapolis Colts. I think they do finally force Daniel Jones to make some mistakes. I think that the Rams get the victory over the Colts this week. Next up, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-1, coming off of their victory over the Houston Texans, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who are 3-0, coming off of their victory over the Arizona Cardinals. The Jaguars are a team that is very inconsistent. Their defense, played very good against Houston, but I don't know if that has more to do with Houston's offensive line more so than it does about Jacksonville. Their offense has been very inconsistent with being able to get the ball to their top playmaker, Brian Thomas. Their run game is still very good. Trevor Lawrence has still been very inconsistent to start the season. And for the 49ers, they're just dealing with injuries. They lost star defensive lineman Nick Bosa. He's out for the season with an ACL injury. That's another injury piled up for them. They hopefully should get Brock Purdy back for this game from his toe and shoulder injuries. Obviously they still have Christian McCaffrey who's playing well. They will actually get help in the receiving game as Demarcus Robinson comes back from suspension. Their defense has see how they look without Nick Bosa, but Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator has done a great job with that defense this year that he's back in San Francisco. So I do think that the 49ers get the victory here. I don't trust the consistency of the Jaguars. I think that defensively they're going to be able to make Trevor Lawrence make bad decisions. I think offensively they have enough firepower on offense. Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall in the receiving game, Marcus Robinson they're getting back. Maybe Juwan. Maybe Juwan Jennings will be back. They'll have Kendrick Bourne, who has been there for a couple weeks now. So I do think the 49ers can do enough to get the victory over the Jaguars. Next up, you have a matchup of surprising 1-2 teams as the 1-2 Baltimore Ravens, coming off of their loss to the Detroit Lions, take on the surprising 1-2 Kansas City Chiefs, coming off of their victory over the New York Giants. The Ravens, their offense has been great to start the season, except Derrick Henry has had fumbles in every single game. Lamar Jackson has played well. Mark Andrews had a very good game against Detroit this past week. Their biggest issue has been their defense. But in their defense, giving up a bunch of points. They've given up a bunch of points to the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions, who are two very good offenses. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, their offense has struggled this season. Their number one receiver right now is Tyquan Thornton. They can't really do anything in the run game. Travis Kelce hasn't had a good start to the season. Patrick Mahomes is kind of having to play hero ball for them. And defensively, they're pretty good. But you got to wonder how long this defense can hold off this high-powered offense of the Ravens. And because of the offenses, I think that the Ravens get the win here. I don't trust what the Chiefs can do on offense right now. They could possibly get Xavier Worthy back for this game. He could be another big play threat for them. But as long as they have no threat in the running game and no real receiver outside of Tyquan Thornton, I do think that the Baltimore Ravens have way more firepower on offense and are going to be able to maybe pretty easily outscore the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think the Baltimore Ravens get away with the victory here, and the Chiefs fall to a very surprising 1-3. Next up, you have the Chicago Bears, who are 1-2, coming off of a pretty dominant victory over the Dallas Cowboys, in which their passing game looked great, and Caleb Williams had 4 touchdown passes, taking on the Vegas Raiders, who are coming off of their loss to the Washington Commanders, which, Trey Tucker had a very good game for their offense, but other than that, it was not great. Ashton Jeanty has played okay, but he continues to have his struggles. And I really think that could continue into this game, as this Bears defense is actually pretty good, with the exception of when they played the Lions, which honestly could have more to do with how good the Lions offense is, more so than how good this Bears defense is. Bears defense did great against the Cowboys. They did pretty good for 3 quarters against the Vikings week 1. Caleb Williams is really starting to look very good in this Ben Johnson offense. I do think that the Chicago Bears will actually get the victory here. I think the Raiders will continue to struggle a little bit. I think Caleb Williams will continue to look good. He should hopefully have another very good game. So I do think the Chicago Bears can get the victory over the Raiders. Next up on Sunday Night Football, you have the Green Bay Packers, who are 2-1, coming off of their very close loss to the Cleveland Browns, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are 1-2, coming off of their loss to the Bears, in which they did not look all that great, and they did lose CeeDee Lamb for what looks like at least a couple of weeks with a high ankle sprain that he suffered early in that game. It's also, for Green Bay, this is Micah Parsons' return to Dallas against the team that traded him to Green Bay at the end of the offseason. It's a little bit of a Micah Parsons revenge game. The Cowboys' offensive line has had a couple of injuries to start the season, and they've really been a question mark since the start of the year. Offensively, still have no CeeDee Lamb, so it looks like George Pickens is going to be the number 1 guy. They do have Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders in the running game. How good they're going to look just Packers run defense for the first 2 games looked really good. Quinshon Judkins was able to have a good game against them. I don't know if either of the Cowboys running backs will look that good against them. This Cowboys defense has not looked good. Like Jordan Love should be able to have a very good game. Like Josh Jacobs should be able to run pretty much all over this offense. So I do think the Green Bay Packers get the victory here. I think defensively they're going to be able to get pressure on Dak Prescott. I think offensively they're going to be able to run the ball on this Cowboys defense. Who, funny thing is they traded away Micah Parsons and got Kenny Clark from the Packers to improve their run defense, but it hasn't really helped them to start the season. And, the Packers run defense has actually looked better than the Cowboys run defense. But do you think that the Green Bay Packers get the victory over the Dallas Cowboys? Moving on, you have a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. First up, you have an AFC East battle of 2 winless teams as the New York Jets, who are 0-3, take on the Miami Dolphins, who are also 0-3. The Jets coming off their very close loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which their defense looked very good and their offense did okay. Tyrod Taylor did enough to where they could have won that game, but ultimately fell short. And the Miami Dolphins coming off their loss to the Buffalo Bills, in which for most of that game, Tua played well, and then when they needed him to make a play, threw an interception that wound up costing them the game. This game, I think, would be very close, but I do think that the Jets can get the victory here because I don't trust I can't trust the Dolphins' offensive line, and defensively, I just don't trust their secondary. I think Garrett Wilson could have a very good game. If they have Justin Fields back, he could have a very good game rushing as the quarterback. Defensively, I think they're going to be able to get after Tua. They're going to pressure him. They're going to be able to make him make bad decisions. So I do think that the New York Jets can get the victory and will get the victory over the Miami Dolphins. And finally, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who were 2-1, coming off of their blowout loss to the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Denver Broncos, who are 1-2, coming off of their very close loss to the LA Chargers. This Bengals team, without Joe Burrow, their offense just does not look good. Chase Brown had, I believe, 10 carries for 3 yards. Not good. T. Higgins was basically taken out of that game against the Vikings. He was pretty much a non-factor. The only good piece of offense they had is right now is Jamar Chase. He didn't have that great of a game. He had like 5 catches for 50 yards or 55 yards. Not a great game. Defensively, they could not stop the run really of Minnesota. So I do think that Denver is going to be able to run the ball with J.K. Dobbins, maybe get R.J. Harvey more involved. Bo Nix should be able to have a pretty good game throwing the ball. Defensively, they're going to get after Jake Browning with this very good defense of Denver. And if Patrick Surtain is covering Jamar Chase could have a pretty quiet game. I don't think he still could have a pretty good game because he's Jamar Chase. But I don't really trust any of the other pieces on the Bengals offense. So I do think that the Denver Broncos will get the victory here because defensively they should be able to very much slow down and stop a lot of aspects of this Bengals defense or offense. And offensively, I think they should be able to move the ball and score points pretty well against this Bengals defense. Let me know in the comments who you have winning these games this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.